Our third featured session is titled Global Citizenship for a Sustainable Tomorrow, From Policy to Action. It will be hosted by our partner, Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, and Ms. Fröhler, CEO, and Ms. Zimmerman, Program Officer of Ban Ki-moon Center, will be co-moderating the session. Welcome, Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens.
Hello, everybody. Distinguished speakers, dear changemakers, dear guests, and everybody around joining us on YouTube. Thank you all very much for being with us today at this scientific session about global citizenship for a sustainable tomorrow, from policy to action. My name is Katrin Harvey, and I'm the COO of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, and I will be co-moderating this session today with my colleague, Zimmerman. At the Ban Ki-moon Center, we work directly with current decision makers and future change makers in their leadership roles to implement Sustainable Development Goals. These goals, or the SDGs, are a set of objectives all governments have signed up to in order to make the world a better, more sustainable and equitable place. SDG 4, quality education, is one of the keys to unlock many of the other SDGs and to ensure that no one is left behind. Education is fundamental to developing the capacity of today's youth to act as global citizens. As a community, we are confronted with mounting challenges, including climate change, conflicts, gender inequality, and of course, the global pandemic. Equipping generations of leaders with a mindset of global citizenship is therefore more vital than ever before. A number of policymakers and educators are already taking action to integrate global citizenship education into curricula around the world. The aim is to empower learners of all ages to assume active roles, both locally and globally, in building more peaceful, tolerant, and inclusive, secure societies. We must integrate teaching and learning of global citizenship in people's minds, in their hearts, and in their actions. This way, we go beyond simply transferring information and knowledge, but also equip learners with the skills, values, and behaviors necessary to forge a sustainable future for all. At the Ban Ki-moon Center, we implement our own programs to educate, empower, and build leadership of youth and women to act as global citizens in their communities. We get to share the journey of inspiring young changemakers who develop and run their own specialized SDG micro-projects in their communities, addressing challenges with concrete, actionable, and impactful solutions. To date, we are proud to say that the Ban Ki-moon Center has trained over 200 young leaders who have implemented 170 SDG micro-projects, which in turn have reached 730,000 people on the ground. We are privileged to have 3 of them with us today to learn from their experiences. The Ban Ki-moon Center is also proud to be part of an initiative called Mission 4.7, along with UNESCO, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Columbia University, the Global Schools Program, and the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Mission 4.7 encourages and supports governments as well as educators in adopting global citizenship education or transformative education in their policies and practices. Today, we bring together the 2 strands of our work to discuss the importance of global citizen education and highlight why SDG 4, particularly 4.7, needs to be prioritized. We will hear from trailblazing leaders, policymakers, and actors who are all part of Mission 4.7 on how they have already taken initiative to integrate the topic into policies, curricula, training programs, and pedagogic concepts. We will later on hear about the practical, on-the-ground, and transformational SDG micro-projects some of our young changemakers have realized as part of their engagement with the Ban Ki-moon Center. Both our current leaders and our changemakers will share best practices, experiences, challenges, and opportunities for GCED, policy implementation, and youth action for the SDGs. I am personally looking forward to hearing more from all of these inspiring global citizens and to follow the discussion on what is needed for global citizens to thrive in different countries, communities, and contexts. Without further ado, I'm honored to now give the floor to the 8th UN Secretary General and co-chair of the Ban Ki-moon Center, His Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who has a message of welcome for all of us.
Excellencies, dear participants, dear global citizens, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's session, Global Citizenship for a Sustainable Tomorrow, from Policy to Action, hosted by the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. In a world of ever-increasing global challenges, education provides an essential pathway to solutions by illuminating minds and inciting actions. Global Citizenship Education, GCET, seeks to empower learners with the knowledge, values, and behaviors needed to create a sustainable tomorrow. In the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4, Target 4.7 calls for the implementation of education that is inclusive and that promotes sustainable development. GCET is a key component to achieving this goal. It teaches values such as empathy, compassion, and cultural understanding, as well as knowledge about sustainable development and the global issues that affect us all. To transform education and foster global citizenship, curriculum must be adapted, national policies put in place, and support must be provided to the teachers responsible for implementing GCET in the classroom. UNESCO, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN, the United Nations Academic Impact, UNAI, and many academic institutions and civil society organizations are working tirelessly to promote SDG Target 4.7. I commend them all for their contributions, but more still needs to be done. The Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, which I co-chair with my dear friend and 11th President of the Republic of Austria, Dr. Heinz Fischer, seeks to empower young leaders to act as global citizens for the SDGs and the Paris Climate Agreement. We also work with existing leaders to promote policies for transformative education, climate adaptation, and sustainable development. As I often say, the world needs more global citizen leaders. We are currently missing this kind of leadership. However, I am hopeful that we can get back on track. The youth of today have incredible potential to change our course if given access to the education they need to thrive and contribute as global citizens. Dear participants, global citizenship education is fundamental to achieving a sustainable tomorrow. It gives us the tools we need to act for the SDGs. I commend the leaders in education policy who will share their insights and experiences with us today. Thank you for your engagement. I also congratulate our young panelists, Julian Andlov from Zimbabwe, Rosario Diaz Gravito from Peru, and Shireen Shehzad Bamani from Pakistan, who are members of the Ban Ki-moon Center's Leadership and Empowerment Program. You inspire all of us to act as global citizens. I wish you an engaging and inspiring session. Let us work together for the achievement of the SDGs. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jiban. And now I'm just as delighted to have with us the 11th President of the Republic of Austria, His Excellency President Heinz Fischer, with us today, who will welcome everyone to the session as well. President Fischer, over to you.
My dear friend Ban Ki-moon, thank you for your inspiring words. Your Excellency, Minister of Education and Religious Affairs of Greece, Niki Kerameus, Honorable Director of the Division for Peace and Sustainable Development at UNESCO, Mrs. Vibeke Jensen, dear youth panelists, dear participants and friends. First, greetings to all of you from Vienna, from Austria, from Europe. I'm pleased to welcome you all today to our session of the topic of global citizenship in the field of education, SDG 4. I appreciate very much your engagement in the field of education and in connection of the SDGs. Before my time as president of my country, I was 4 years the Minister of Science, Universities and Research. This was in the 80s, quite long ago, but I learned in detail about the global relevance of science, technology and education. And that's more important than ever. We live in difficult times, and to navigate them, educating our youth, building their capacity to act as global citizens for a sustainable tomorrow, and utilizing the opportunities and achievements of science and research is of great importance. Global citizenship education, or GCED, equips learners with the knowledge, values and behaviors necessary to give back to their communities and the world. However, GCED is yet not the norm, and access to quality education is not a guarantee. Today, millions of children and adolescents still lack access to quality education, and many to any schooling at all. The situation has also been made worse by the ongoing pandemic, as we all know. Therefore, more than ever, we must work together as an international community to ensure sustainable access to quality education for all, leaving no one behind. We must support our youth so that they can reach their full potentials and contribute to bettering the future for themselves and their communities. This is in everyone's interest. We need all of us on board to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Without this, we will not be successful. Dear participants, a few months ago, I read a book written in 1912, 110 years ago, about the opportunities of science and research for the future of mankind. And I can tell you that the significance of science and yet education has been totally underestimated on that regard. So we have to learn from mistakes from the past, and we have the great responsibility to prepare our youth to cope with new developments and to ensure that they go in the right direction. We must ensure that the progress in this field is distributed fairly and justly so that no one is left behind. Research and science should serve humanity and not endanger it. This is our common responsibility. This being said, we only have a limited amount of time left to achieve the SDGs. 2030 is less than a decade away. It heartens me to see countries like Greece showing great leadership in ensuring access to inclusive quality education and preparing learners to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. I also commend UNESCO, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and the United Nations Academic Impact for their leadership in the pursuit of realization of SDG 4. It makes me proud to see the Ban Ki-moon Center's own young leaders featuring on today's panel. These change makers are already leading the way and will continue to do so moving forward. I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you fruitful discussions during today's session and a good future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Fischer, and always a delight Let's dive right into the crux of the matter now and learn more about what has been happening on global citizenship in various contexts and countries. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Her Excellency Minister Niki Kerameus, Minister of Education and Religious Affairs of the Hellenic Republic and member of the Hellenic Parliament. During her tenure as minister, she has introduced a series of legislative reforms to upgrade the quality of Greek education systems and render it more fair, inclusive, and dynamic. I'm very excited to hear more about what you've been doing, Minister. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear President Fischer, dear Director, dear youth delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and pleasure to be here with you today to discuss this most vital question of promoting education for sustainable development and education for global citizenship. And it is a true honor to be in a group of such distinguished people under the leadership of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals set for us a pathway for a better and brighter future, tackling poverty, hate, and discrimination, and environmental degradation. While there is an SDG which is explicitly dedicated to education, I think, ladies and gentlemen, most of us would agree that education has a key role to play in most SDGs, and not just in that one SDG focused on education. Education is a catalyst for change. And hence, I fully agree with President Fischer and with his remarks earlier on about lessons learned from the past and what we can do moving forward. Now, more than ever, we need to invest in our education for sustainable development and the whole of society approach, acknowledging how seemingly distinct phenomena are in reality deeply intertwined, they're deeply interlinked. To that end, please allow me to share with you some key policy initiatives from Greece on 3 levels. And the 3 levels are the following. The first is primary and secondary education. The second level is vocational education and training. And the third level is universities. So the first level are schools, from pre-elementary to high schools. In Greece, we have introduced policies in line with SDG 4.7 to ensure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. What do I mean by that? We have revamped over 160 school curricula in order to place the acquisition of skills at the very heart of learning, along with integrating sustainability across disciplines. So we're moving from the focus to transferring of knowledge to a parallel focus on the cultivation of skills. And when I say skills, I mean critical thinking, I mean empathy, I mean problem solving, etc. So we have updated the content of what is taught in schools, which we have introduced new pedagogies, which are skill and student-centric, and we have incorporated digital tools across the board. We have also introduced into the mandatory curriculum from ages 4 to 15, a new model which is called the Skills Labs. The Skills Labs aim specifically at cultivating soft and digital skills through broad social themes such as diversity, global citizenship, respect for others, respect for the environment, volunteering, etc. Lastly, we have introduced English as part of the mandatory curriculum as of the age of 4 for all youngsters, so that they can become truly citizens of the world. So that's the first level regarding schools. The second level has to do with vocational education and training. And there we have radically reformed the way VET modules are set by including social partners in the process of curriculum formation. So in essence, what we do is we first go and see what society needs, both at the country level, but also at smaller, let's say, municipalities. And once we have first detected the needs of society, that information is taken into account when we form specialties offered and the curricula. I'll give you an example. Greece is undergoing right now a huge effort for delignitization. So one of the specialties that is in great demand is technicians for renewable energy sources. So in areas where we're advancing with delignitization, at the same time through VET institutes and institutions, we are offering specialties which are in great demand in those areas, such as technicians for renewable energy sources. Third level, university level. We are heavily investing in making our universities more connected with the global education community than ever before in Greece's history. We have removed red tape to make it easier for universities to establish all kinds of partnerships with foreign universities, And when I say partnerships, I mean dual degrees, I mean double degrees, I mean summer programs, I mean exchanges of researchers, students, professors. We have allocated significant amounts of funds to attract faculty from around the world to make our universities hotspots of international collaboration and learning. And we're establishing ties between Greek universities through strategic partnerships, for example, in Europe, in North America, in East Asia, and beyond. Our university students are our best ambassadors to promote a culture of extroversion, of openness and tolerance, to learn from each other, and to promote the values of global citizenship and peace. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to education for sustainable development and global citizenship, we believe it is essential to start as early as possible and to aim as broadly as possible. We have to integrate sustainability across the board, from pre-K, from the age of 4, up to universities and lifelong learning. This will ensure that the common efforts will have an impact and will be able to meet the sustainable development goals and effectively promote global citizenship. Thank you very much for including me in this most distinguished panel of people, for your exemplary leadership and for your attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. What an inspiring mission. I forgot to mention that Minister Kerameus is also a member of the high-level advisory group of Mission 4.7. So she's also part of our team there. Thank you so much again. And now next, let's move on to Ms. Vibeke Jensen, who is the incumbent director of the Division for Peace and Sustainable Development within the education sector at UNESCO headquarters. Her division covers, amongst others, education for sustainable development, global citizenship education, prevention of violent extremism, sexuality and HIV education, school violence and bullying, school health, and the UNESCO Associated Schools Network with over 11,000 schools around the world. So very interesting to hear what Ms. Jensen has to say, and also happy to let you know that Mrs. Jensen is also a member of Mission 4.7 Secretariat. Ms. Jensen, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katrin, for that introduction, and excellencies and dear participants, good morning, good afternoon. And it is indeed my great pleasure to join this forum, and I thank the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens for the invitation. Now, the global pandemic that has disrupted our world for the past 2 years has magnified our interdependence, conducting us to a dangerous turning point. A safe and sustainable future can only be shaped by informed global citizens acting in solidarity and cooperation. And this is why the theme of today's forum, From Policy to Action, carries urgent resonance. The climate crisis created by human action threatens our survival. And as our former UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban, so often has asserted, there is no planet B. Inequalities are rising dramatically within and across countries, undermining social cohesion. Hate speech, misinformation, and divisive narratives amplified on social media are fueling social and political polarization. Digital technologies are rapidly shifting our relationships to learning, work, and each other, and the pandemic has only accelerated this dependence. And against this backdrop, UNESCO's International Commission on the Futures of Education released a landmark report last year in November. It calls for reimagining our futures together through a new social contract for education, one that rebalances our relations with each other, with the planet, and also with technology. So to make this shift, education itself has to become transformative. And to strengthen our capacity to act together, we must learn collaboration, empathy, and human solidarity, as well as to treasure diversity and pluralism. To protect our planet, we must learn for our planet by acquiring the knowledge, mindsets, and skills to act for sustainable change. To make technology a force for inclusion, we must accelerate action to bridge the digital divide that prevented at least 1/3 of the world's students from even accessing learning during the pandemic. Digital skills now have to be integrated into every learning pathway for democratic participation, employment, and resilience to the accelerated flow of disinformation, violent ideologies, and also hate speech. Ladies and gentlemen, Sustainable Development Goal Target 4.7 is our common anchor to transform the world through education. UNESCO is actively working towards it through its education programs, the programs for global citizenship, for health and well-being, and sustainable development. And we are seeing increased understanding and accelerated take-up of this target at all levels. Let me give you a few compelling examples. In Southern Africa, we're supporting 16 countries to integrate global citizenship education principles in their curricula, as well as a history of the regional liberation movement, so that the young generation can reflect on their past and also understand the roots of discrimination. In the Sahel, we are building the capacities of teachers on transformative pedagogies. The aim is to build resilience among youth to violent extremism and engage them as peace agents within their communities. And at the global level, we have stepped up action to counter Holocaust denial and build resilience to anti-Semitic prejudices through education, including by partnering with social media companies. A UN General Assembly resolution adopted last month highlighted the importance of education to counter Holocaust denial and recognized UNESCO's lead role on this front. And last October, member states of UNESCO adopted national commitments to address hate speech through education at the first Global Education Ministers Conference on this subject. And this was organized with the UN Office on the Prevention of Genocide and the Responsibility to Protect. These are all learning experiences that transform learners, connect with the world around them, and gain the mindsets and capacity to act for peace and a more sustainable tomorrow. We are starting to gain strong evidence from around the world on conditions for this to happen. Transformative education put learners at the center, giving them space to think critically, claiming their rights and take action. They need to understand power dynamics, including the historical, social, and political structures that shape our place in the world and our relationship to the planet. They must be equipped with media and information literacy skills to be responsible digital citizens. This calls for concerted global cooperation to steer the digital transformation of education around three core principles: centering on the most marginalized, investing in high quality, open and free digital content, and supporting pedagogical innovation. And this brings me to the last point. Transformation only happens with teachers. No technology can replace them, as the pandemic has universally demonstrated. If education is to be transformative and serve sustainable development, teachers need the support and training to make this happen. And this is not yet the case. According to a recent survey that we conducted with Education International of more than 58,000 teachers, only 1/3 felt confident teaching about climate change or issues such as racism. They asserted their motivation, but felt ill-equipped. The message is clear. Teachers need far more support if they are to succeed in helping young generations grow up as global citizens. Just as critical are assessment methods that reward competencies such as collaboration, empathy, and respect for diversity over competition. In short, transformation cannot be piecemeal. It is not a matter of adding subjects to the curricula, but of shifting the paradigm so that learners gain a sense of all that connects us to each other and to the planet, and the capacity to take action for a more just and sustainable future. For too long, the voices of youth have been sidelined in discussions about their future. And I'm very pleased to see that the next panel discussion will draw on the experience of young change makers. I'm a firm believer that young people can help lead our societies in shifting towards a more inclusive and sustainable future. And I wish you a very fruitful and interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Jensen. This has been very inspiring. And I do agree that we have to have everybody on board to really make this paradigm shift happen. Next up, please let me introduce to you Mr. Ramu Damodaran, the first chief of the United Nations Academic Impact, which he designed and launched in 2010. He also served as Secretary of the United Nations General Assembly's Committee on Information and the department's focal point for legislative relationships with member states. His many initiatives include the Many Languages One World Multilingual Essay Contest, as well as a global competition for projects on diversity with the United Colors of Benetton. Mr. Damodaran is also a member of the high-level advisory group of Mission 4.7. Mr. Damodaran, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Katrin, President Fischer, distinguished friends. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been 15 years since Mr. Ban Ki-moon took over as Secretary General of the United Nations. And I still recall his opening speech after taking the oath of office, when he said, "We cannot change everything at once, but we can build progress in a few areas, and so make way for progress in many areas. This will require intensive and continuous dialogue. It will require us to work together, transparently, flexibly, and honestly. And it will require us to start with an open mind." Now, those three elements, dialogue, teamwork, and an open mind, are the hallmarks of education and of the academic calling, which is reflected in our panel today. And they have informed a series of transformations that the United Nations underwent between 2007, when Mr. Ban took over, and the conclusion of his second term in 2016. In essence, these alter the context of the human person and the organization. Because hitherto, the human person, woman or man, had been seen as a subject of what the organization could do for them. In these 10 years, we transformed that equation into what individuals, women and men, could do for each other, for the organization, and for the world. The essence, if you will, of global citizenship. I'm very conscious of the fact and grateful that the Ban Ki-moon Center in Vienna is not titled as a Center for Global Citizenship, but for global citizens, because it is that affirmation of the fact that it is the individual who makes the right choice and can make that connection and that transformation that is so essential at a time when we try and distance the individual from the process of change by couching it in the abstract. President Fischer, and I believe this was almost 25 years before the Sustainable Development Goals came to being, had spoken of the events of 1989, including the fall of the Berlin Wall, as something like a political miracle. And it had a lasting impact on him. The possibility of this political miracle, that what appears a difficult and even forlorn endeavor can in fact be accomplished. The Sustainable Development Goals and the idea of global citizens is a political miracle. I do not doubt that in 1945, not one single founding member of the United Nations would have accepted for the organization a role in what it considered the internal affairs of how it related to its own citizens, the rights it gave to them, and the duties that they extended in return. That was considered a domestic province. Today, we have international accountability between citizens and governments and each other within the framework of global citizenship and the SDGs. Much of this is really owed to the imagination of Mr. Ban, because even though global citizenship education, as we have heard, is an important factor in Mission 4.7 or SDG 4.7, the idea of global citizenship at the United Nations actually comes 3 years earlier, in 2012, when Secretary General Ban launched the Global Education First initiative, one of whose 3 pillars was global citizenship. In his characteristic style, he was able to almost slip it unobtrusively into the global agenda. And so it became much easier once the SDGs were being drafted for this to be included as an element within them. When the Mission 4.7 was launched at the Vatican in December 2020, His Holiness the Pope spoke about the wave of educational opportunities based on social justice and mutual love amidst the globalization of indifference. And I ask you to pause for a moment and think about this globalization of indifference. In particular, as has been said, how it relates to the trauma we have undergone over the past 2 years. One would have thought that the searing tales and experiences that the world has undergone since the beginning of 2019 would have altered our consciousness, would have called for an end to conflict and war, would have encouraged us to seek new ways of partnership and endeavor. That has not happened at the government level. But, as I'm sure our later panel will attest, it is happening at the popular level, at the student level, at the level of individuals concerned about the world that they live in. As my good friend Sam Loney, who will speak just after me, once described it, we are now in an intergenerational space. And I ask you to keep that in mind, because this is not the traditional idea of intergenerations as a conflict between generations, but one of harmony between them. I think also of the fact that some of the points that have been made earlier in this conversation are so compelling. When we heard Minister Kerameus talk about renewable energy in Greece, one thinks of the work of the United Nations Academic Hub there, the Energy Policy Institute of the National and Kaposian University of Athens, which has started a program of tree forestation, bringing to mind the metaphor that we plant a tree under whose shade we will never sit. That is what global citizenship and citizenry is all about. Archbishop Desmond Tutu said at one point, we are so busy fishing people out of the water that we don't stop to think what caused them to jump in upstream in the first place. That sense of conscience is what animates our conversations today, of global citizenship today. President Fischer spoke about a book written 110 years ago, and he quoted from it. I would like to go 110 years before that, to the edge of the 19th century, to 1802, when in Heiligenstadt, in Vienna, Ludwig van Beethoven wrote his Testament. And I'd like to share one excerpt from it. O Providence, grant me at least one day of pure joy. It is so long since joy echoed in my heart. When, oh, when can I find that joy in this temple of nature and of man? Our world today is that temple of nature and of human beings. We can alter, we can mutilate, we can defile, we can destroy both of them at our peril for our immediate gains. But with the spirit of women and men like you and the young mentors and mentees and fellows of the Ban Ki-moon Center, we shall assure that both nature and human beings enjoy the respect they deserve and cherish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Damodar, and especially for reminding us to believe in miracles in the exact moment when the sun reached my table. So that already was a miracle. Last but not least, it is very great to have Mr. Sam Loney with us, who was already mentioned. He is a program director at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN, a research and policy organization. And he's also the founder and director of Global Schools, which is a program that combines research and training to promote education for sustainable development around the world. Sam has many accolades under his belt, including from the Nobel Peace Prize Forum, Forbes magazine, and the NAEEA. Sam is also a member of Mission 4.7 Secretariat. Sam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Katrin and Julia, for putting together this wonderful and very important event, and to Yonsei University and all the partners, and of course, to His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Minister, Mr. President, and my friend Ramu, and many other distinguished guests. In the short time that I have, I want to highlight a hypothesis that we had early on before we engaged in education for sustainable development and started the Global Schools program. And that was, global citizenship education and education for sustainable development, these are good for society, but also for education. And I think many of the guests have highlighted the importance that global citizenship education has for society, but I would like to go a bit further and talk about the education aspect of it. And I think we have talked about what is global citizenship education, but I think just to be a little bit explicit, I think it's important that we highlight the values as well as the knowledge and the skills that are really embedded into the concept of global citizenship education, because I think you need a much more comprehensive view on the approach that it takes. So from the values of peace and tolerance and human rights, knowledge of how the global economy works, the complexities, how the environment interacts with the economy, and much more. And of course, I was very happy to hear the minister talk about skills and the 21st century skills, and that the underlying aspects of that, which is empathy, systems thinking, collaboration, and the types of mindsets that are necessary for children today to thrive in the future, but also to be able to shape a more sustainable community around them. But also for me, global citizenship education, it entails of not just what it is and the content of it, but also how it's being taught, because I think that is actually a crucial step from student-centered learning to action-oriented learning. And the first claim, which is how is global citizenship education good for society? And I think if we want to go to the very basics, we can argue that values form behaviors and preferences which essentially determine the economic, social, and even political developments within a society. So really the superstructure of an economy and a society is in large part shaped by the values embedded within it. And this is not my assertion or theory. There are many social and economic models out there that really study the importance of values and preferences of the agents in the economy and how these shape interactions. And indeed, many Nobel Prize in economics and other fields have been won on these very insights. So I say to you, imagine the values of human rights and tolerance and peace and environmental sustainability embedded into our respective societies. And if we were able to equip children with these values, I think we're likely to see a much better world. So we know that these values are important in shaping our world, but how do we really embed global citizenship values in society? And I think here education is an extremely powerful weapon, and that's something that Nelson Mandela famously said. And really building on that, we can really see education as a sensitive intervention point, and there are actually models and there are lots of studies which show that education is probably one of the most effective long-term tools for achieving decarbonization and certainly the sustainable development goals. So here, I think by embedding these values in our education and being able to embed them in an effective manner, I think is really the key here. And we ourselves have seen the results of this at the Global Schools program by really, providing the tools for teachers to build communities around these core values, and as well as to teach and have school activities around this. And really the results have been extraordinary. We now have many case studies where we can point to and say this has made a difference, and we could see how it's actually leading to better outcomes within communities. And I wish I had the chance to go through all those examples, but we don't, but I encourage you to go on the Global Schools website and look at those case studies. And indeed, the next panel of essentially youth panelists are really the essence of this, which is to show how individuals with the right resources and tools and skills can really shape entire communities and create real change. But also, I would say that global citizenship education is good for education itself. So this fact, I think, is often overlooked. I think the primary concern, and I think in large part rightly so, of education ministries around the world is how do we enhance and how do we improve educational outcomes? And there are studies which show that transformative education, which global citizenship is certainly a very important dimension of, shows that it has a direct impact on student attendance, on student engagement, on teacher satisfaction, and learning outcomes across a range of areas, including math and science schools. And we're seeing again these incredible stories, and we're seeing the results of this again through the global schools and the evidence base that we've obtained through these experiments and through these case studies. And we're really seeing that students who were previously not engaged in the usual day-to-day education are all of a sudden really becoming the leaders in a classroom, not just in those activities, but also across a range of other activities. And I think this often overlooked insight is critical to be able to more effectively promote global citizenship education and ESD. So what is the issue? If global citizenship education is good for society and it's good for education, why are we not seeing more of it? And I would argue that this is a developing field firstly, but really the missing components are poor data, and essentially both the extent of the data as well as the quality of data on how well global citizenship education is being taught around the world, how it works, and what are the strategies being used to promote it, and what more can be done. The second one is that there is a missing, I think, blueprint for global citizenship education. So what are the key content, what are the key lessons that need to be thought across the three domains of learning: cognitive, socio-emotional, and behavioral. And of course, the third component, which I refer to, is the missing pedagogical strategies and training that can be complemented to ensure that happens. And I would actually argue that there is also another element, which is the country level success stories. It's wonderful to see the Minister of Education doing wonderful new innovations of global citizenship education as well as ESD in Greece. And I think we need to see more examples of that and to really use those stories, to use those experiences to encourage other countries to do the same and enable other countries to learn from the experiences of Greece and the handful countries who have really been at the cutting edge of this movement. So all the evidence is there, all the case studies have shown it, and we now know what needs to be done. What we're missing in this space is really a cohesive strategy and the resources and the collaboration to make it happen. And I think forums such as these enable those collaborations and really will enable us to actually build a solid and a cohesive strategy to bring global citizenship education to all levels of education in a meaningful way, and to really enable and empower the teachers to be able to teach it and to be able to engage students in the community. And I think not only is this important for us and for our communities, but I think we owe it to the next generation in particular to equip them with the knowledge, the skills, and the values that would enable them to thrive in the future economy, and more importantly, to shape communities that they will want to live in. And as Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, let us work together to achieve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. That brings us to the end of our high-level panel. Thank you so much for your amazing insights of everybody. Before we hand over to Julia and the youth panel, which everybody's very excited to learn more about their work, we want to engage everybody with us today on YouTube, streaming with us, even panelists on the call here today. Please take out your cell phones, go to menti.com, www.menti.com, or scan the QR code on your screens. And then you will be prompted to enter the code that you also see on the screen, which is 9337445. And you will be able to answer questions live to be a part of our poll questions to see what people have already been listening to and what your opinions are on certain topics. So I give you 2 more seconds to actually sign up. And then once you're in, you will see the first question, which is, what would the world look like if global citizenship were taught in every classroom? So this will become a word cloud. So let's give us your ideas of what it could be, and we'll see how it looks like. Oh, caring, happy, fulfilled. I love this. More prosperous, more sustainable, more inclusive. Becoming harmonized, tolerant, accomplished. A few more are coming. Yes. Fair, peaceful. Yes, peaceful is growing and inclusive is growing. So there's more people who are typing that. Wonderful. I think, okay, I think that's all of the answers. Oh no, there's more. We're coming. Again, more inclusive, with innovations, innovative, recognizable, responsible, sorry, imaginative, very nice, equal. But I see inclusive and peaceful are really the most prominent one, inclusiveness and peace. So I think this is a perfect summarization of where we want to go with global citizenship. All right, to the next questions. So is global citizenship currently a well-known and practiced mindset in your country? Let's see how many people agree with this. Okay, so we're in the middle. No, disagreeing. Oh, look at the more people towards the disagreement page. So we have a bit of a way to go. I think that also sums up our conversation so far. So most people more disagree with the fact that global citizenship is already a mindset in their countries. So that we have a path laid out for us. So that's obvious. Next question, in your opinion, what is most needed to implement Target 4.7 in both formal and informal educational settings? So what do we need to do in the educational settings to get 4.7, so global citizenship education, more integrated? I can see people typing. We need textbooks on all levels, yes. Curriculum reform, absolutely. Real commitment with our people on our planet, yes. Encourage students to read a newspaper from an actually different country each day. That's an interesting idea. We have to promote awareness among teachers and leaders, and it should be part of the curriculum. Yes, I also agree. Some very interesting ideas here. We need accessible and inclusive policies, global classroom exchanges. Oh, this is awesome. I think this is really important. Must be very fun for students as well to have this exchange. Spreading the word about 4.7 in informal settings and rural settings, yes. Make education learner-centered and encourage innovativeness, yes. We need an educational reform and strong commitment from all stakeholders. A consensus regarding global citizenship education, including teachers and students at the center, yes. New teaching strategies, absolutely. So many ideas, this is great. Have we seen all of them? I think we have. Can you scroll down one more? Oh yeah, there's more. Oh yeah, leaders and teachers need to actually live with the mission of empowering youth without having them fully agree with the concept education will only be empty. Budget, yes, as with everything, we need money to implement things, absolutely. And we have to set a curriculum that is the same for every country. At least that's an interesting challenge for every country across the world, but it would be interesting to have that. Okay, I think, yes, going to the last question. One last question from everybody. So what inspires you as a person, as an individual, to be a global citizen? What is your inspiration? Or who? My community. The capacity within me. Oh, I love this. Believe that we have a common goal. Yes. Young people around the world doing amazing things. Yes. Knowing that we are all one. The hunger to bring change. Greta, yes. Seeing different parts of the world and understanding, acknowledging the differences. So traveling, once we can do it again, absolutely. The possibility of a more inclusive and happy world. Yes, the dream. My students, that's lovely. I'll give it 2 more seconds. Interest that meets in one place to solve world problems. Yes. Very cool. Moral responsibility to make a better world. Honest leaders. Absolute. That would be great. There are some around. All right. Good. I think we can conclude Mentimeter. And with that, also, I'm very happy to hand over to my colleague, Julia Zimmerman, Project Officer of the Ban Ki-moon Center, who will take over my virtual moderator's mic now. Thank you so much, everybody. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Katrin, for the lovely passing over of the mic. And thank you to all the speakers that have already shared their incentives today with us. It's been really a treat to listen from my side. And now taking from that last question, what inspires you as a global citizen? Well, I can say what inspires me are these 3 young change makers that we have with us today. So I'm very excited to introduce the 3 wonderful speakers that we have joining us, Jillian and Lovu, Rosario Diaz-Garavito, and Shireen Shehzad Brahmani, all 3 of which are members of our leadership training programs. Jillian is a scholar from our 2021 cohort, and she is from Zimbabwe. She's empowered to make a difference in her community and beyond, and holds a bachelor's dual degree in business management and information technology from the Catholic University of Zimbabwe, and recently graduated with a distinction from Lincoln University with a master's of management in agribusiness. So we're very excited to have her with us today, and she has a project that she's going to share with us as well. Next, we have Rosario Diaz-Garavito from Peru. And Rosario is just a fantastic young changemaker. She's a part of our Women's Empowerment Program Latin America, currently ongoing. She's an SDG activist and the founder and executive director of the Millennials Movement. She also served as the elected focal point for the Children, Adolescent, and Youth Group of the Latin American and Caribbean Region Civil Society Participation Mechanism. Amongst many other things, she was awarded as an Obama Scholar and graduating from the Master's degree in International Development Policy at the Harris School of Public Policy, University of Chicago. Wonderful to have you with us, Rosario. And third, but not least, of course, is Ms. Shireen Shehzad Brahmani. Shireen is a current Global Citizen mentee in our mentorship program at the Ban Ki-moon Center from Pakistan and studying at University of Ghent in Belgium. She holds a PhD student currently of health sciences at Ghent University in Belgium, and completed an MSc in epidemiology and biostatistics and a BSc in nursing at Aga Khan University in Pakistan. Presently, she also works as an assistant professor at Aga Khan University in the School of Nursing and Midwifery. So I'm very excited to have these three with us today, and I hope that they are now visible also on your screens. And I would like to start already with a question for all of you. It's so lovely to see you today. What does global citizenship mean to you, and why is it so important? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Jillian to kick us off. We can't hear your mic yet, Jillian. Still, unfortunately not. Let's give the team a minute to kind of check that. Can you try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Perfect. Go for it.
All right. I'm so excited to be here and to be joining everyone here. Global citizenship for me is all about a world where we don't see our language differences, our skin differences, but it's a world where all of us know that we're living all together in a world where we are sharing. So whatever action I take must be an action that makes the world a better place for the next person, regardless of where they are located, regardless of where they come from. So global citizenship for me is about living in a global village where we don't see any differences amongst each other, but we live together as if we're from the same place. That's what global citizenship is for me.
Thank you, Jillian. So this idea of a global village, that we all see each other as a part of one community, that's really a nice image and one that I also see myself too. Same question now to Rosario. What does global citizenship mean to you, and why is it so important for you?
Thank you, Julia. Well, I guess for me, global citizenship means have this sense of belonging to something or a wider space, a wider community where you feel empathy about different issues that perhaps are not necessarily affecting your community, but you can see is affecting other people, such as you, that is having different struggles. So I think whenever we see and feel this empathy, we have this sense of belonging, then we start growing a commitment in order to do things differently, in order to speak up, in order to take actions that perhaps are going to start shaping in a different way our world and our community, and start bringing this knowledge and these practices to our community, to our group, so more people can join. I think it's very important that we kind of understand this concept mostly now, where we can see that not the communities cannot be isolated, or any community can be isolated when we talk about climate change, when we talk about inequality, when we talk about different struggles. So I think whenever we feel this empathy and we have this commitment and we take action and we have this feeling of belonging, then is when we can start acting all together to move forward these global and regional agendas for a better future and actually a better present as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosario, for this as well, for sharing your insights on global citizenship. Shireen, what does global citizenship mean for you?
Thank you so much, Julia, for, first of all, for inviting me as a youth panelist here. So in my opinion, it is a concept or a notion which promotes citizenship beyond the political, geographical, or territorial boundaries. So it doesn't matter where you are living. You can still be the part of a global community. For example, if you are a globally minded individual, you will not only do things that will impact your own community or your own setting. Rather, you will think broad. Beyond the region, you look national, international, and global perspective, right? So as an individual, if you want to be called as a global citizen, so you should not be a person who is a local champion only. Your actions, your reflections, your thoughts, your perspective, your ideology, everything should be beyond yourself. Like you should promote respect you should promote respect for others by valuing their culture and diversity. And for example, like being the national of a developing country, I look towards developed country, what they have actually utilized for targeting, for example, for better health. So whatever they have utilized, they have successful in utilizing anything, I can use the same, I can apply the same in my country and replicate the same for us. So, but this will only possible if you widen your horizon, if you are of thinking, right? And you think as a global citizen. And COVID, this pandemic time has actually prepared us for this. Like if you focus on yourself, you will not be successful until and unless you will support others, and when you will assist others, then you can bring a successful outcome and profit for all, right? So this is
wonderful. Yes, exactly. This mindset that we can all take on. So this is something that global citizenship education helps foster. But in your own ways, in your own studies, you've grown as global citizens. And in our program, you have had the opportunity to implement your own SDG micro projects. And that's where we're going to go to now. The SDG micro project of the Ban Ki-moon Center is a guided project for our young change makers where they work on addressing a challenge in their community. So really spotting a challenge and finding a solution and tying it to the Sustainable Development Goals, either one or perhaps more than one of the Sustainable Development Goals, as they seek to address that challenge in their community. And our three speakers today have really done fantastic projects, are in the process of continuing to build these projects. And so I'm really excited to have them share with you. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Jillian to share with us about Project Bliss. Over to you, Jillian.
Thank you, Julia. Just like Julia has already said, the project that I worked on is called Bliss. So Bliss, I'm so glad that the high-level speakers were talking about global citizenship and education, because Bliss was also working with primary schools. So I was working with primary schools here in Zimbabwe, 2 of them, for promoting as in agriculture and also promoting sustainability in terms of provision of foods, also teaching these children how to grow their food sustainably, also fighting hunger, because a very unique component of Project Bliss is that it promotes the planting of fruit trees in these primary schools, either refurbishing the school orchards or actually establishing new school orchards. So Project Bliss was actually fulfilling a couple of SDGs, which is SDGs 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, and 13, because whilst we're planting these fruit trees, yes, we're promoting sustainable diets through, since fruits provide vitamins for these school children, but also when we plant a tree, we're also contributing towards the action against climate change. So doing this project was actually a good start for me, because in the same spirit of promoting education amongst these children, they were equipped with not just knowledge in sustainable agricultural practices, but they were also equipped with skills that they can use later on. Because coming from a country like Zimbabwe, we have so many economic issues, and unemployment is one of them. So when you equip these children with practical skills, especially sustainable agricultural skills, they'll get to use these skills later on in their lives. So it was a very interesting project, and it was also good for me to work with these children, because most of them had no idea what sustainable development goals were all about. But once I had workshops with them, they were so excited. They wanted to be part of the movement. So it really motivated me to, take this project even into other regions and into other countries, because I just imagined, okay, if these children had no idea about this, what about other children elsewhere, So I'm really motivated to take this project to other regions, even outside of Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Project Bliss is really an exciting initiative, and what I really liked about it particularly was just how hands-on it is, going into a classroom, teaching a workshop about sustainable diets, agriculture, but then really going and physically planting trees together and having that experience of building a community together around sustainability is just so important. So thank you for your work as a change maker. Next, I want to turn to Rosario to share about her project, the Agenda Ambassadors, 2030 Agenda Ambassadors program. So over to you, Rosario.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, actually, this program, it was an initiative that started some years ago. Within the program of that I participated at the Bank Center, I was able to shape it in a better way, because one of the things that through the years, even though we were working on this and we had identified that, you know, we are supporting SDG 16, SDG 5, SDG 13, 17, we didn't realize that we were actually contributing very high to SDG 4, target 4.7 specifically. The project, it's focused on youth-led organizations in the Latin American and Caribbean region. And what it basically does is it trains different organizations and also gives support and guidance to these organizations, so they can not only learn about the importance of the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development, but also whenever they are activating in their communities, regardless what is their focus, if they can be working for climate change or gender equality. The idea is that they include the 2030 Agenda approaches and the SDGs, and these actions can continue even after the program is over. The program is being delivered per different editions now. It's a 6-month program, and besides the training stage that we deliver to the organizations that participate on the program, we also partner with different allies from international or global or regional initiatives. We partner with, for instance, the SG Action Campaign of the United Nations. We also partner. We have partnered at some point with the UN 75 process. Last year, we partnered with the world's largest lesson. We also partner for the Global Week of Action for the SDGs. So the idea is to create also these connections, these partnerships, these paths, so the participant organizations can deliver actions in their community, but not necessarily stay just there. Showcase their experience with other people, not only with their peers, but regionally and globally. So in that way, they start feeling this sense of belonging. You know, they belong to this global movement of youth activists and people that is actually contributing with the achievement and advance of the SDGs from the territories. So that is the program. We also have some pictures of the different actions that we have taken. The program this year is being taken online since 2020 due to the COVID-19 restrictions that we have, you know, in order to mobilize. So the actions were mostly focused online, and also the different implementation activities were focused online. But instead of, for instance, being a market and deliver there a campaign, and we were working on digital activities, cyber activities for different topics related to the SDGs. So we have a last picture as well, where you can see, so it looks like whenever we are in not COVID frameworks or context, this is actually the action. You know, young people actually working for young people, so we can ensure that our future is better. So far, we have been working with 200 plus youth-led organizations, all of them based on the Latin American and Caribbean region. And definitely when you guys ask who inspire you, I think this is the people, and this is the community that I was saying, right? This is the community that inspired me in 16 countries in my region. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosario. It's really inspiring to see what you're able to accomplish in your region for other people from Latin America and the Caribbean, and to really encourage other young people like yourself to be empowered to take action for sustainable development right in their own communities. So you're just multiplying exactly the effort that we're also working on at the Ban Ki-moon Center, and it's so wonderful to see that it's multiplying outside of our work. Now I will turn to Shireen to share about her project in the global health space. Shireen, over to you.
Thank you so much. So considering the depression in elderly is a major public health issue, and during pandemic, where the social isolation, social disconnection has resulted actually in more serious issues among elders, especially living in a shelter home. So what my project actually did, we tried to promote resilience building skills among those elder clients that can reduce their depression and enhance resilience and healthy coping. And this is very much in line with SDG 3 that ensures healthy living and to promote well-being. So we conducted several activities with them centered around some theme, and I would appreciate if you can show some snapshot of the project so they can have a better idea about what we did. So, okay, thank you. So if you can focus on the left side of the picture where they have holding a jar. So this is the activity where we try to promote the sense of gratitude among elderly clients. Each older adult were given some time to think about their blessings. Meanwhile, we have given them the recycled gratitude jar, which was decorated with the colorful paints. They were it was given to them, and we give them the time. We gave them the chits where they have jot down what blessings they have, and then they put those chits in this jar. So this was a source of reminder to them about their blessing and how much they are grateful. And on the right side of the picture, if you can focus, so these were, here we shared some stories through flashcards. So these stories were focusing around the power of faith, trust, and the concept of humanity and helping others. And at the end, we took the participants' feedback and reflection around that. And if you can, if the next slide, if you can focus on the, am I audible to you? Okay, so if you can focus on the left side of this slide, you can see that we tried to enhance optimism, where each elder client was given a newspaper with a marker. So they were asked to circle or highlight anything that portray positivity and happiness to them. So it could be a picture of a nature, a child, a happy family, or any positive word. So you won't believe, somebody has marked prayers, highlighted prayers, somebody picked a car, a very fascinated car, and somebody has circled the sports. So because they really wanted to engage in sports. So this was another activity. And on the right side, this was another session that fostered optimism by reminiscing good moments, recalling funny and good moments from the past time. That the purpose was to increase positive emotion and hope and reduce their depressive symptoms. And we used dice for that activity. So whatever number came up on the dice, so they were supposed to answer those number of questions. And questions were like, what did you like to do as a child? Which movie or song you love the most? You won't believe they even sing the song with us. So, and what funny memory you have related to to your childhood. So these were kind of activities we did, though during this time it was very challenging because dealing with the vulnerable population during this pandemic time, getting permission to enter in the older home was a bit challenging, but so we were quite delayed with our timeline, but I really appreciate and acknowledge the support I had from my mentor. She was instrumental and very encouraging throughout the process. To achieve the outcome, because we wanted to promote resilience among these elder clients. So this was all about the project.
Thank you so much, Shireen, for sharing about your project. And Shireen is a part of our mentorship program, our ongoing mentorship program for young women in global health. So her mentor is also a professor in global health and has a background in nursing, if I remember correctly. And so they've been able to work together very closely throughout the whole mentorship process, as Shireen has been ideating about the project, building the project, implementing the project, and it's just so nice that this partnership, this collaboration is possible because, of course, mentorship is really important to help young change makers. I think all of the young people listening today will agree that that makes a big difference when you have someone that kind of extends a hand, helps you out, gives you new fresh ideas, and can even learn from your fresh ideas too, which is great. So with that, I want to now turn over to a final question before we go ahead and have a question from the audience. We have a special guest who'll be giving a question from the audience. But that final question from me first is, what advice would you have to others who want to take action as global citizens for a sustainable world? How would you want to advise them to go about it? What's your key wisdom here? And I'll start with Jillian again.
All right, thank you, Julia. My advice would be just start. Sometimes when you want to do something great in your community, you might find it difficult, like to find a starting point. And sometimes you might not have the resources, you might not have the guidance, the mentorship, you might not have the social capital. So if you think about all those negative factors, you might be discouraged from starting. So my best advice is, if you want to see a better world, just start and be the change that you've been waiting for. Don't wait for somebody else to come and enact change in your community, to come and pick up the litter that is in your community. You are the change. You just start from nowhere. And once you start and you gain momentum, you'll be actually surprised that you find many other partners who would want to join you on that journey. So whatever idea you have, no idea is too small. Just pick it up and go with it. That's my advice.
Thank you, Jillian. I think this is really important, is no idea is too small, right? I think we can easily get overwhelmed by the idea of trying to change the whole world. But you don't need to change the whole world. You can also just change your family, maybe having a conversation with your family member about an important topic, then branching out to your friend group, then looking into your community, and then perhaps that grows and scales into something bigger. But we all have the capacity to change something and to influence something in our surroundings. So thank you for that, Jillian. Thank you for that inspiration. Rosario, what would your advice be for others?
Wow, I actually support Jillian advice, but also I think that it's important to look for partnerships and look for people around you. That is, for me, one of the main things whenever we want to work in order to be a global citizen, in order to start promoting this education on sustainable development. Something that I think it's important is, since we are already inspire and we feel this empathy and we feel that we belong to this larger community, share this with other people, and also make them fall in love with the same, make them teach them and share them, and inspire them to fall in love with, supporting their communities to change the world. Because I believe that even so we cannot perhaps change the world, have all the resources and all the actions to fix every single problem. Every single action we take can have or has the potential to replicate. When I started the Millennials movement, it was only me and my computer. Now we are a network of more than 200 organizations in the Latin American and Caribbean region. And I didn't imagine that, but I guess the look for these other people that perhaps are feeling the same that I'm feeling, that those questions and those or that willingness to change or learn something is something that we need to start looking for. And then definitely, I think I guess I would like to say that when I was in high school, I had this professor, and he teaches biology, and he will say, "I'm teaching you biology for life." So at this point, in this context, I think we need to start teaching for life, but we cannot imagine other life than a sustainable one. So we need to start teaching for life, but for a sustainable one. And that within our organizations, within our communities, within our families, and also carrying this later on in our different conversations with decision makers in order to create influence and start shaping our communities in a better way so we can achieve that world that we want to see, that world that is more fair, that is more sustainable, that is more inclusive. And yes, so that will be my suggestion. Look for partners and take action, be fearless.
Thank you, Rosario. Thank you. Partners, take action, be fearless. I think that's the perfect summary of what you said. Shireen, over to you. Please keep it short if we can so that we can fit in one question as well. You're still on mute. Yeah.
Okay, so I would say, like, whatever you are doing, just to be an active participant, not just a passive recipient. So be flexible, dedicated, be creative, and you should not be rigid on your own goals, right? Like, you should think beyond, as I said earlier also, think about other areas, other countries, think about their issues, their problems, and what you can do as a global citizen. Right. And my advice would be, if you get chance to travel around either remote area or to the abroad, like, you must travel, because being with other citizen, being with other nationalists, it's a great chance to learn from other. So this is my advice to other other people for being a global citizen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shireen. Now I would like to bring in one of our special guests. We have our former scholar, Belinda, from our 2019 cohort of scholarship program at the Ban Ki-moon Center, and she's currently a student at Yonsei University in her last year of studies, which I can't believe already, but she has a special question for our panel that will be the final question of today. So Belinda, please, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so inspired by the talks that were going on around SDG 4.7, and I'm really so pumped because although I'm a student, my part-time job is with kids. I am an English teacher, so I'm so pumped to teach them about sustainability. But I do have a question for actually, it's not to a single person, but to all the youth panel, and it's pretty similar to the previous question, but the previous question was about youth who already want to start activism, but there are actually a lot of youth who see the problem in their societies. You were able to see a problem in your society and you became that solution and you took part in the solution. But what about the youth who see a problem and feel like the solution is just way too big for them to actually handle, who think the solution is larger than them and that they cannot do anything in being the solution to a certain problem that they see in their societies? What would you have to say to youth in that scenario?
Whoever wants to jump in first, go for it. Rosario, do you want to start us off? Yeah, go for it.
I guess what I would say is that we all have been on those shoes. We all have been in a situation where we see that the issue is very big and we don't know what action to take. And I guess whenever we start taking action is when things happen. And I really believe that young people and people in general, but I will focus this time on young people, is quite resilient. They have shown that they can do things independently of the hardest context that they are living in their communities, in their regions, in their nations. So definitely, I think I will say to them that they need to keep trying. This is a long-term process. Changing all this world will take time, but we have the capacity to leave a legacy in our community, and that legacy can be that little action that can open the path for more actions to be taken. So that will be my words for those people.
Yes, and Shireen and Gillian, really quickly, because I know we're very low on time and I want to make sure we end really as much on time as possible. So Shireen, over to you, and then Gillian.
Okay. So I will say one thing to the group of young people, that change will, or the impact will not come in one day, but you should be hopeful and you can do whatever you can do in your own capacity. So if you are consistent, persistent in your actions, then one day you will be an agent for change for that particular problem. So this will be my advice to the young people.
As for me, Julia, my advice would be that if you think that the problem in front of you is big, just imagine yourself as being equally bigger. And if you can't do it yourself, rope in some friends. When people ideate, when people come together, you'll be surprised how much you can achieve as a unified team rather than doing it all by yourself.
Thank you so much to Gillian, Shireen, and Rosario, and Belinda for your question. Thank you to our youth panelists for joining us today, for sharing your insights, for inspiring all of us, for inspiring hopefully all of the listeners on YouTube as well to take action for the Sustainable Development Goals as global citizens, to apply that mindset in their communities. And I would like to now hand it back over to our COO, Katrin Harvey, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, everybody. Shireen, Gillian, Rosario, Belinda. Wonderful to have you. And I don't have much more to say than what Julia already said. Extremely inspiring to hear what you've been able to do. I do hope that everybody on the call today has been inspired as myself, and to really thrive to become the global citizen, the best global citizens that they can be, with their minds, their hearts, and their actions. And with that, I think we can close today's panel. Thank you, everybody, again, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Julia and Katrin from Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, and the panelists for promoting global citizenship and youth action for the SDGs.